your body gotta do?
What?
Hey everybody, it's Steph. Today I am going to be leading you through the first 4 episodes of Missing 9. Initially we were going to do the first 2 episodes, but we had some technical difficulties that were entirely my fault in my incompetence and inadequacy as an editor. So the first week was kind of a wash. Oopsies. That's okay. We're going to refilm. It's going to be great. Right now we're just going to focus on finishing the first 4 episodes, hoping to God that I get through it without making too much of a mess. Also, I need to mention the first 2 episodes Em and I watched backward. This has been a learning process. So anyway, that's where we are. Get ready. We're going to have our first recap. It's going to be a great time. Okay, so we open up the first episode and we're on a beach somewhere. There is a chick who is super dirty. She seems to not know where the heck she is or even possibly who she is as well. Hint, it's Ra Bong-hee, our main character. Elsewhere, we have a gentleman who we find out who is the CEO of Legend Entertainment. He is answering these phone calls from people demanding that he continue searching for these people who have gone missing after a plane crash. It seems to have been close to 4 months, around 120 days since these people have gone missing, and the families of these people, of course, are very angry that they have not been located. There's been no records. While he's on one of those phone calls, his assistant reels in with the television, and it has this news thing that's happening. Apparently, this woman has been identified as one of the people who were supposed to have died in this crash, except totally not dead, alive, which means that maybe the others are alive as well. After a little bit, we go back to this woman, and it takes a minute, but she's finally released by the Chinese government to go home, because apparently they viewed her as a threat or something. I don't know, but they held her for a little bit, and then they sent her home. Funny story, they sent her home on a plane. China, why? Naturally, she has a panic attack on board this plane because of extenuating circumstances. I mean, if you've survived a plane crash, chances are you're never going to want to get on a plane again. And I'm sure that China could have done something with some sort of boat somewhere. Or a train that can cross the water. You get my point. Bong-hee arrives back in Korea, and she has a tearful reunion with her mother. And it's also discovered that she has lost her memory. After Bong-hee arrives, she is approached by a chairwoman, and this woman is brutal, yo. She essentially demands, Bong-hee, you remember right now. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Here, got it. Done. I remember everything. Thanks, chairwoman. While she's having this little conference with this chairwoman lady, Bong-hee tries her best to remember as much as she can, so she starts sort of retracing her steps. And then we get this little flashback that sends us back to 4 months ago, right before the plane crash. Bong-hee is super excited about her first day on her first job as a stylist for Seo-juno, who is he's a celebrity, but he's sort of fallen from grace in the last few years. He used to be a part of a very well-known K-pop group or an idol group called the Dreamers, and unfortunately he had a run-in with some alcohol and he went drunk driving, or at least it seems that the rumor was spread that he was doing a bit of drinking and driving. After some other things that happened later on down the line that we're going to find out about later, the Dreamers disband. And one of them, his name is Tae-ho, and he does really well for himself. And there's kind of like this little rivalry that's going on between him and Juno. Unfortunately, Juno did not do so well for himself because of that whole DUI thing, and he just kind of snowballed down into this really negative place. And now he's sort of taking Taeho's rejections. We meet Juno as he's performing at one of those hand-me-downs from Taeho, and he's being a real diva about it. I sort of understand where he's coming from because the job is not glamorous. There's lots of mud, there's lots of octopi, all sorts of just nasty things, and I can understand him not wanting to do the shoot. He straight up gives him deuces and just moves on. He's like, nope, I'm gonna go elsewhere. So he goes to this cafe and waits out for his manager Ki-jun to arrive. And Ki-jun is actually en route to the shoot with Bong-hee because he was supposed to have picked her up and bring her to this shoot because she's gonna be Juno's stylist. When they arrive, Juno makes it very clear that he does not want to do this shoot. And Ki-jun has to convince him, saying that if you pull another diva move, no one is ever going to hire you. You were lucky to get this to begin with because Taeho decided that he didn't want it. He does agree to continue, but he sees a sort of silver lining in Bong-hee because she's new, and he can blame his displeasure and his frustration on her. As he's preparing for the shoot, once the rehearsals are done, he tells her to start putting together some outfits. And she brings things out, and they're all right. They're not terrible. They look like, you know, general things. They look like he'd look fine, but he does not have any of it. Every single option that she brings out to him is not worthy of him. It either makes him look too fat, it makes him look too short, he doesn't like the colors. So he uses this as a way to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do the filming today. My stylist is inept. And they leave. But not before Juno decides that he's gonna fire Bong-hee like a big old jerk. Luckily for Bong-hee, Hee-jun gets on the phone, his manager, and convinces him to take her back. Because again, this is her first job, she's gonna work really hard, she has a lot of promise, and plus, no one else is gonna do the job, because you're kind of a douche. He realizes that Hee-jun is right, so he tells the driver to turn around, and he comes in and picks her up, but he does it in a way that where he doesn't actually tell her that she's not fired. She has to hear it from Hee-jun that she's not fired. So everybody loads up their stuff, they get onto this van, and they go to the airport where they all load onto this really fancy jet. There are 2 chandeliers, a wet bar, there are no like airplane seats that are super uncomfortable. It's like these couches, and it's just super fancy. So everybody's on this plane, they're getting ready to take off, and Juno decides that he wants to change clothes. Fine, whatever, you do you, brother. So Bong-hee goes and gets him a change of clothes, and once she brings him the clothes, he just immediately starts disrobing. Granted, he's in the bathroom, but just takes off his pants, and she freaks out and runs off in another direction. Unfortunately, this leads her into eyesight of Taeho and Jia just macking, going hardcore on this one of the couches in there. So she immediately buries her face in her phone and just starts texting her mom just to get her mind off of anything else that's happening on this plane, because it's just utter nonsense. Jia notices that Bong-hee is in their vicinity, and she notices that she's looking at her phone. So she starts freaking out, pushes Taeho off her, and says, stop recording, because she thinks that she's recording this conversation, when in fact she's just texting her mother to get away from these terrible situations. Jia just grabs her phone from her and starts rifling through all of her phone to figure out where she saved this file that she's obviously taken of them making out, because it's of course a huge news thing, whatever. Meanwhile, on the other end of the plane, the rest of the Dreamers have assembled, and they are discussing one of the other members, Yeol. He has a solo album coming out soon, and the CEO, Mr. Huang, starts asking him questions about the album. What's going to happen with it, what kind of sound is it, etc. And he asks him to play one specific song. And Yeol is a little bit hesitant to do so, but he decides to play it. And as it plays, the rest of the Dreamers get really silent. Apparently, they had been using a songwriter whose name was Jae-hyun, and he wrote a song for them, the song that Yeol just played, that they love. Unfortunately, Jae-hyun said that he could not work for them anymore. Naturally, after having worked with him for such a long time, the Dreamers are really upset. They don't understand why he's made they don't understand why he's made this decision, and they're not sure what they're going to do without him. Juno is visibly upset, and he excuses himself for the conversation. And it's at this point that we start to experience some turbulence. But it's not anything beyond just your normal, oh, we've hit a rough patch, we're gonna be okay. Funnily enough, there's no pilot telling them to sit down, put their seatbelts on. It's just like, nah, go laze on a couch, go stand at the wet bar, everything's cool. This is the Titanic. While that's going on, Yeol is trying to make peace with Juno because he understands that he's upset. And then this, of course, is when Taeho steps in, and he's a big old poop about it. There are fisticuffs and big old kerfluffles, and Juno remembers a conversation that he had with Jae-hyun after he said that he was going to quit. Jae-hyun was talking to Juno in confidence, saying, hey, I love you guys, and I love the work that you do, but I can't write songs anymore. And Juno, unfortunately, let his anger get the best of him, and he tells him to go die. The storm gets a little worse, the turbulence gets worse, and the plane starts rocking around pretty violently. Some people are smart enough to realize, I need to sit, but others are just kind of walking around like nothing's happening, as if it's same old, this is fine, we're not gonna die. And unfortunately, hail strikes one of the engines, I think it's the right one, and the engine just goes It's done. There's fire, there are explosions. It's a really bad situation. And that's what sends this plane into a tailspin. And right as the plane is about to hit water, because they see it approaching, each member has a flashback. Yell recalls a poster from their first album being released. CEO Huang remembers a conversation that he had with Juno about Jaehyun, and Ji-ah and Ki-jun have a flashback of when she told him he couldn't be her manager anymore. And the big flashback that we see is when they're all entering the studio, and as they're entering through the doors, they hear this big crash, this bang. They turn around, and Jaehyun is lying face down on top of a car, and he's just thrown himself off the top of the building, and it's heartbreaking. There's lots of tears, screaming, crying. We scooch back to the present, and the plane hits the water, and it just breaks apart. It's in pieces. Can't see anybody, and it's just a big old mess. And that is the end of episode 1. Okay, so there you have it. Tune in tomorrow for the next episode, because again, technical difficulties, and we're doing it again. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff in the little doodly-doos below. And if you have any recommendations, if you have any thoughts about Missing 9, if you have anything to say at all, do so. Let us know. We want to know. We want to hear what you think. That being said, I'm going to head out. So, you are beautiful, and I hope you have a wonderful day.